My guest today is superstar singer, songwriter, and artist Brady Seals, and he carries a remarkable musical pedigree as part of the Seals family, connected to industry luminaries like Jimmy Seals, Dan Seals, and Troy Seals. Now, with over 11 million albums sold, Brady's career soared during his 6-year tenure with Little Texas, contributing to 3 consecutive number one hits and earning ASCAP Triple Play Award. Now, his solo journey showcased collaborations with Rodney Crowell and a self-titled CD featuring industry icons like Vince Gill and Ricky Skaggs. And a versatile performer, co-founder of Music City Pickers Live, and a leader of Seals and Crofts 2, Brady Seals continues to make waves, garnering millions of streams for such singles, including I'd Really Love to See You Tonight, which has now streamed over 1.5 million times on Spotify. Now, Brady is celebrating the 30th anniversary of My Love. He released his re-recorded version of My Love to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the smash hit that ascended to number one on Billboard's Hot Country Songs in 1994 and selling over 2 million copies. So without further ado, let's welcome superstar singer-songwriter Brady Seals to the show. Welcome,
Man, you make me,
friend.
man, it's so good to see you. You make me sound so good, man.
Well, the last time we did this, it was actually audio. And so this is our first time on camera together. And
Yes.
brother, I read your full resume, and I have to say, are you amazed at all the accomplishments that you've achieved in 30 plus years in the music business?
Man, blessed is the word that comes to mind. I just, I mean, I know the whole cliche of like you have to be ready when an opportunity comes and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, God has just been so good to me and has put me in some really cool positions, some weird ones too. But overall, I'm just so thankful, man.
Well, even after the 6 years with Little Texas, you never slowed down. You went right into a solo project and then on to Hot Apple Pie and, uh, gosh, what is it? Even was it the Petty Junkies as
Yeah, the
well?
petty junkies. That's right.
Man, I mean,
Yeah,
so you always stayed busy.
man. These days, when you don't have a major label, I mean, for years and years and years, I always tell people I'm like a cat. I've got so many freaking lives. But these days I don't have a major label backing me up, so it's just me, man. So I've got to just, whenever I wake up in the morning, I got to hit the ground running, man, to try to pay the bills and just keep up with the Joneses, man. So I really really try my best to do everything that I can being self-employed.
Well, yeah, and the whole industry has changed. I know artists that are far older than you that are now navigating being an independent artist, even though
Yeah.
they still have the famous name and the resume behind them. They're navigating this whole world of streaming now.
The streaming thing has really changed the landscape of everything. It really has, man. And you know, I just literally in the last couple of days have kind of secured like a new management team and again I'm working with my old manager Christy DiNapoli on the music aspect of my career. And so, for me, the streaming thing is such a big part of everything that we're talking about. And, back in the day, it was records. How many records have you sold? These days, they're like, what's that? So, even though vinyl has made a comeback, but yeah, streaming is so important. Keeping your TikTok numbers up and your Instagram followers going and all that kind of stuff. It's literally a nonstop, job, man. Well, I mean, I
Oh,
know you're in the same boat as me when it comes to that. But it certainly does make it interesting. It's like the wild wild west out there.
that's funny that you bring up the streaming numbers because now, like you'd said, people have no idea what, Yeah, well, remember back in the day, so if you sold 500,000 albums, that was gold. A
Right.
million was platinum, and 10 million is the rare diamond.
Right.
And I mean, I don't. I mean, are they handing out gold records on streaming numbers now?
I don't think that they are, but maybe they are. I don't know. It's been you know, I haven't gotten close to those numbers yet, so I have no clue. I kind of think that they are, just simply because somebody's got to give something to somebody, so I'm sure that there's something like that going on out there, but it's just I don't know. The landscape has changed so much, and you know, w- when I was a kid and growing up and listening to rock and roll and country and so on and so forth, if I were to put on, Willie Nelson, record, I'd be thinking, "Oh my gosh, this freaking Willie Nelson, right?" And when if I would go to his show, there's no way that I would think that I would be able to see or talk to Willie Nelson. Well, nowadays, with streaming being the way that it is and so personal, if somebody likes a video that you put up on TikTok and you don't answer them, they think, well, he's stuck up. He's like, well, he should he didn't say anything to me. So literally, it's like you really have to be personal with almost every fan and follower that you have now.
Well, you know what I have seen and learned, if you especially on Instagram, because if you just hit the little heart icon and let them know that you saw their comment, that's usually enough. But then if you say something back to them, that was the whole world. They're like, "Oh my gosh, so and
Right.
so
Yeah.
said thank you to me," and then they take the screenshot of it because that's going to be their memory. So
Right.
for people like you do bring incredible joy to a lot of fans' lives because they live for that stuff. And now with social media, it makes it almost like it's one on one.
It's really, really cool. And as you know, like when you start going deep into keeping or being consistent with your posts and so on and so forth, the algorithm really, really loves for you to answer. Not only to heart, but to also comment. And then it's like, oh my God, so it's a nonstop thing. But yes, man, when I see somebody say to me, hey, my love was the song that we danced to at our wedding, or another you another me was the song that we danced to for our prom or whatever. I'm just like, oh my gosh, these monumental kind of moments I've been a part of, and it means so much. And like I said, I'm just so blessed to have made my mark in some kind of way, shape, or form.
Well, it's been the 30th anniversary of your hit song. I guess really Little Texas hit song, My Love. So, what's the story behind this incredible hit?
Well, it was a song that my friend Tommy Barnes, great songwriter, had the start of this song. Tommy also wrote like Indian Outlaw for Tim McGraw, right? And he also wrote Man to Man for Hank Williams Jr. back in the day, right? So Tommy's just a great, great songwriter, and he had this song, and he had the whole verse written: "Get on your mark, get set, ready or not, here I come," and the whole thing. But on the chorus, it looped a little bit. My love, my love, my love is ready for you, my love. My love is ready for you, my love. Right? So it just kept on circling. So when I played it to Porter, he and I were both like, do you think Tommy would be okay for us to kind of like change a little bit of this and that or whatever, maybe put a different kind of B section on the second verse, and then maybe modulate the thing. So really, Porter and I just kind of took the arrangement, if you will, and kind of made it Little Texas, right? And so when I heard the song, I just loved it. It was such a cool song, and um, matter of fact, speaking of Tim McGraw, when Tim was like freshly signed here in Nashville, Tommy and I had went over and like met with Tim, and just little green dude here in town, man. He's just glad to be here, kind of thing. And he heard my love, and he said, "Man, I'd like to cut that song." And so whenever we left the studio, I turned to Tommy. I was like, "Man, that dude ain't cutting my song, man." Of course, I didn't know that it would be freaking Tim McGraw. And so who knows if I'd have let him cut it now or not? Who knows? But um, the song actually didn't hardly see the light of day. It was one of the last songs that was recorded for the Big Time record, which is Little Texas's second record for Warner Brothers. And I remember Bill Main. He was like one of the top dogs there at Warner, coming into our dressing room. We were playing a big stadium somewhere, opening up for Clint Black or something. And he come into the green room and he said, "Hey guys, I think that the next single is going to be My Love." And I'm thinking, seriously, the first thing that I thought was, "Oh my God, don't let it be My Love," because first of all, it was me singing, and I was a little nervous about that. I'm like, "But Tim is the regular singer," um, because we had just had a number one on R&R with What Might Have Been, number one with God Bless Texas, and then they wanted to put out My Love. And I thought, "Oh my God," but sure enough, we released it, went to number one on Billboard this time, and became CMT's Video of the Year. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. That I didn't realize that it came out after God Bless Texas, because
Yeah.
I think here in the state of Texas, I'm thinking that's probably our state anthem now.
Man, I tell you, that song has had legs for days, man. I tell you, when we wrote it, we just didn't feel that it would be as big of a hit as it was. Um, Now, when we played it for sound, like we actually worked it up at sound check, and back then we were busy so much that the only time that we could actually work up a song was at sound check, and it was this big stadium somewhere, and Rod Essig, who was the head of CAA at the time, he was our agent, was out at the soundboard with our manager Christy DiNapoli, and we played God Bless Texas. And Rod was the first one to turn to Christy and say, "That's a monster smash," and we're like, "Really?"
Yeah, but
And sure enough, it was, man.
that video carried that song, because
Yeah.
when you're looking at the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders and you're hearing this song and everything else that was around it, I mean, that video alone was probably bigger than anything MTV ever put out on the rock side, because everybody wanted to watch the video. Everybody was singing along to it. And like I
Yeah.
said, here in the state of Texas, it's basically our state anthem now, I think.
Well, I tell you, it was Jerry Winter, the guy who directed that video, and you're right. I mean, we filmed it at South Fork Ranch, where the TV show Dallas was filmed, and so and that was such an iconic ranch, to begin with, and then all of the cool little, having the cows talk, um, and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders and the girls walking around the pool and the whole thing. It was definitely something that just took off, man. It was crazy,
And
and you know, and then with What Might Have Been coming out, that was almost like an epic little um, movie, almost. So we were kind of known for the whole video kind of aspect on the countryside. So I'm thankful. That's all I can say, man. I'm thankful.
but the coolest thing, and I've talked to other artists from country from the 80s and the 90s. And the 90s versions, or I should say the 90s country music, those songs today, just like My Love, still sound completely timeless?
Well, we certainly tried. We certainly tried, and you know, um, I haven't really said this to many people, but I've got a greatest hits record coming out. I'm gonna tell you, man, because you're my friend. So I've got a greatest hits record, and My Love was kind of like the flagship single off of that, right? So next in line is Amy's Back in Austin, right? So and originally, I was the original singer on that. So whenever I left the band, Tim went back in and sang it, and because I wasn't in the band anymore. Um, so that's going to be our next single, and that's probably going to be coming out in May. So, but it's so cool to go back and listen to all of these songs all over again, 30 years later, um, and just really hear what we did, and to try to recreate it, but also try to better it, try to make it even better, and it's difficult. It's
Well,
difficult, man,
it's funny because I mean, I'm still sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, it's actually been 30 years
I know.
because it's
I
so
know.
crazy. Because now, if I hear those songs, even on the radio or if I'm on Spotify listening to them, they don't even sound like they're a year old because most of the 90s songs were they had that little bit of rock and pop influence. And of course,
Mhm.
back in the days, probably traditional country people were criticizing it then, just like everybody's criticizing modern country now.
Sure, absolutely.
But you had that solo hit, Another You, Another Me. And in a couple of years, that one's going to be 30 years old. And that one's timeless.
It's crazy, man. I mean, you get up, my age. I'm getting ready to turn 55 this year, and it literally, all of the memories are so embedded in my brain, all of the times when Little Texas played uh Billy Bob's, we packed it out. Somebody said back then that uh, I think that we had packed it out like more than anyone other than Garth Brooks. That's how big we were in Texas back then. And but those memories, that going overseas, and we toured with Mark O'Connor, which legendary fiddlist, and um, I remember looking through this little peephole on the back side of the stage and seeing a blue light shining down just on Mark O'Connor out there playing that violin, man, and in London. And right after the show, Nick Lowe comes up, you know, and I meet Nick Lowe for the first time. I'm just thinking, my God, I've met Ginger Baker. I've got a great story about Ginger Baker. I've got this great story about Ed McMahon coming to Las Vegas when Little Texas was playing the Tropicana when we were shooting Star Search. All of these crazy memories, man, that literally seem like yesterday.
Well,
It's
now,
just
are those memories in your first book, or are you going to be working on a sequel?
Well, it's funny because yeah, the book that I have out now, God Bless Texas and Me Too. Yeah, it actually starts in 1991 at the height of Little Texas's career. Now, when I wrote the book, I literally didn't realize it, but I had written two books at the same time, and and the first half of my childhood is all written. I just need to get it edited and all that kind of stuff. I don't even know if anybody would be or would care at this point, man. But it's all there.
Yeah,
When I
but
was.
you got a family legacy of seals, and now I, for one, love music history. I love the history behind the artist, where they came from, if they were part of a legacy of some sort. There's always stories, and to me, if you put them in print, it's recorded forever.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the funny thing about it is with my family. Now I was, um, a big fan, and my mentor was my musical mentor, should I say, was Troy Seals, my uncle. Right. So, he had, last time I checked, he had over 40 number one songs. Songs like "Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes," "Rock and Roll Heart," um, uh, "Lost in the '50s Tonight," "Drinking and Dreaming," "10 Feet Away," "When We Make Love," "Alabama." The list went on and on and on. I mean, he's had songs cut by Elvis Presley and the Rolling Stones and Rod Stewart, and it's just insane, man. It's just insane. So so I just grew up just wanting to be a songwriter. That's all I wanted to be. And so I didn't really realize that I was even related to Dan and Jimmy until in my 20s, right? So when I got on the label with Little Texas on Warner Brothers, Dan Seals was on Warner Brothers, right? So that was the first time that I literally had met Dan, and I started doing some digging, and sure enough, we're like fourth or fifth cousins or something. I'm like, oh my God. So, and then that opened up a whole world for me. So it's just been so cool to be able to get out on the road and play some of those songs. As with "I'd Really Love to See You Tonight," I had to do a cover of that song because it spoke to
You
me all those
you
years.
nailed it. You nailed
Thank
that
you.
song.
Thank you so,
Oh
so
my
much.
gosh. When you released it and I went to go listen to it, I was like, incredible. Because
Oh,
I know
thank
because
you,
I
man.
know all the songs for England Dan and John Ford Coley. And so and of
Yeah,
course that was one of their biggest hits. So I went back,
yeah.
listened to the original, then I went back and listened to yours, and I'm like, they're all, I mean, literally, you didn't even go outside the boundaries on that song. But how surprised were you when it hit over 1 million streams and it did it
Oh,
very
yeah.
quickly?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and again, that whole Spotify streaming stuff, I don't get it, any of it. I don't understand it all. You know what I'm saying? I really don't. But I can tell you this: when I did record the song, having Lua Crofts, which is Dash Crofts' daughter, come in and sing was super special. And then I called John Forcoley and I said, "Hey, will you make an appearance on this thing?" And he was kind enough to say yes. So he's on that thing, and I said just that in itself is cool enough for me. It's just awesome.
Well, have you ever thought about covering more of their songs?
Yes, yes, I actually have. Um, and like when Seals and Crofts 2, which Lua and I go out and do that every now and then. Um, we've played Nights of Forever, and like like some of those things, and then getting into the Dan Seals catalog. Oh my gosh, everything that glitters is not gold, and she and I do Meet Me in Montana sometimes, and You Still Move Me, and Addicted is an extremely well written song. So there just all these great songs to choose from, along with the Jimmy Seals catalog and Seals and Crofts. It's a whole show. It's just hit after hit after hit.
Man, I mean, the catalogs alone are mind boggling. I mean, when I talk to John Ford Coley, it is still a shock today. Here it's been what 50 plus years,
Yeah.
and just on Spotify, if I remember correctly, their monthly listenership just on their songs alone is multi millions.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, who wouldn't play it? Because it's so good. with this new greatest hits record that I'm putting out, I'm actually going to include three hits that weren't mine, and it's Rock and Roll Heart. I recut Rock and Roll Heart, which is really super cool. I'd really love to see you tonight, and an acoustic version of Summer Breeze. I tell you, when you go back and you listen to that stuff, you're just like, my gosh, how intricate. Some of those chord progressions are so mind-boggling. Jimmy Seals was a genius, man. He really was.
Summer Breeze is probably one of my favorite Seals and Crofts songs because
Absolutely.
I still remember like if it was yesterday.
Yep.
And they were what a few years ahead of England Dan and John Ford Coley.
Yes, exactly. But not much.
No. And
Not much at
see
all.
what's funny, Brady. Okay, so here you have a Tommy Barnes song, "My Love," which and you kind of reworked the whole chorus deal, but still, if you go back and listen to Seals and Crofts, England Dan and John Ford Coley, you listen to some of Dan's solo stuff, and then some of the songs that you wrote with Little Texas, there is not a huge variation in structure and in sound, which is why to me, a lot of the things that you do with Little Texas, those songs, just like the others, there's just this timeless feel to them. So we all want to listen to them over and over again, regardless of what decade it is.
Man, listen, I hope to God they keep on playing them when I'm dead and gone, man. And I hope that it keeps on touching people. And they use it for moments in their life because that's what they're meant for. Um, and I mean, I can say this. It's like, I take pride in what I do. I don't, shoot, I haven't put out a record in quite some time simply because I, I want to put out quality stuff, and I just don't want to throw out stuff. I think the world is kind of littered with stuff, and so I just want to put out something that kind of matters.
I
You know what I'm
agree.
saying?
Yeah, because see, like this year alone, I had to, because I get so inundated with interview requests that I finally had, the only thing that I had to say no to was all of the new, and I'm saying new, very young, upcoming artists, or in their mind, they are up and coming, but
Right.
they still haven't made a name for themselves. But there's so many. I mean, how many people out there right now are putting out a single almost every day, every week, every month? And I'm talking about people that have no name recognition whatsoever.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's non-stop. Um, and I think that maybe COVID had a little something to do with that, just because people got bored at the house and they're thinking, well, I can record this in my living room and put it out. And yeah, you can, but that doesn't mean that it's good, or something that people will listen to.
Yeah, and you know this too, especially in the record label days. And it still happens today with certain major labels. You may have someone that may have an okay talent for singing, but they got the look that sells. So the record label is basically signing the look, and they'll figure out how to do Pro Tools in the studio to make
Right,
them sound really good. But,
right,
and not mentioning any names here, but then you have those that are so super talented in their songwriting. They could sing the paint off a freaking barn, but
right.
maybe they don't have the right look. But again, I'm all for independent artists pounding the ground and getting their music out there. But those days of being signed by a record label, man, those days are basically gone unless you're paying the
Yeah.
record label.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, these days, if you don't already have a following, they're not really interested. Back when Little Texas was signed, we actually had an artist development deal, which meant they actually developed us. They took the time to find the right songs, hone in on the look of the band. They made sure that the videos were specific to us, not just this overall, the same kind of look for each thing. We were basically we were molded. We were molded to have a place in country music.
Well,
And
how
even though
is it?
some,
Well,
yes, go
how is
ahead.
it in Nashville now? Because you're in the Nashville area, and like you said, there's technically no artist development coming from any label. They
Right,
want to know, for some artists, it's important that they do have a following,
right.
with the hopes of getting signed. But then with the development, what are artists doing in Nashville now? Are there specific experts that develop you on the side? How does that work now?
It kind of gets a little seedy when it comes to that sort of thing. You kind of get the cigar smokers like, hey, I can make you a star, kid. It gets a little seedy when it comes to that sort of thing. There's a lot of shenanigans going on when it comes to making people a star. Even the I'm not going to name any names,
Yeah.
but radio promotion, independent radio promotion in country music is a joke. I will
Oh,
say that it's a joke.
it's pay to play, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is, and it's only a few stations, you know, and it's I don't know. You would think that somebody that's been in the business long enough as some of these guys that do that sort of thing would know better, and they wouldn't take the money of up and comers like you're talking about, up and comers, to just pay them $15,000 a month for 5 radio plays. It's like, come on, man. You don't do that. It's like it's already hard enough.
Well,
It's already hard enough. You know
I'm
what I mean?
trying. Yeah, because
Us.
Brady, I was interviewing this musical legend, and we got to laughing about how things were done in the past. And she was laughing with the fact that she had this big major record deal. And then and now she's like, I'm like everybody else. I'm just an independent artist. And I said, yeah, but with a
Right.
famous name. But she remembers the day when you would get in your car, take your stack of 45s, go to every radio station, pushing your single, hoping
Yes.
that they would like it to get played. And that's where some of the biggest hits in music happen, especially in country from the 50s and the 60s. And now, I had a late friend who was a multi-platinum record producer out of LA. And he told me one day, he said, you know how this industry works? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, radio. I said, no. He goes, every person you hear on the radio paid to be there.
Hmm.
And he goes, if not by themselves, it was a record label that did it. He goes, so
Yeah.
most of that music is actually, in a way, I hate to say it, it's almost forced on us when it comes to radio.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, that's the game that they played for years and years and years. There. I remember when there was like a big, uh, like the industry came down on the payola thing or whatever, and it really like disrupted everything there for a while. So yes, it's certainly been a huge part of the industry for quite some time. And a lot of people will argue, well, at least now everything is real, and if you get a follower, it's real. But you have to understand, that you are literally knocking on everyone's door to get them to hear you. Hey, can you,
Yeah, you're
you
not
know,
knocking on the DJ's door. You're knocking on the listener's door
right?
through their smartphone,
That's right.
Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. So the game is different.
Yeah,
Uh, but you know, I
yeah,
I noticed that there's this big resurgence of 1990s country music. Has there
yes.
been any talk of the original lineup of Little Texas getting back together?
Woo! That's a loaded question. Well, I tell you, man, I've tried several times, and I'm just being honest. I've tried several times to get us all back together. As you know, I was the first one to leave, but I was also the first one to forgive. And I was like, you know what? Hey, maybe we didn't see eye to eye. Maybe I never um, said the right things as a young kid. Maybe you didn't understand what I was going through emotionally. Because I went through depression and anxiety and all kinds of stuff during that time, burnout basically. Whenever I left Little Texas, so years later we tried to get back together, and then our lead singer Tim didn't want to. And then there was a lawsuit that happened. I kindly just stepped out, stepped out of that. I was like, listen, I got back together to like have fun and make music. I didn't want to step back into a snake's den here, So whenever I stepped out, um, they continued on. And we have tried several times. Tim and I both have tried to talk to the other guys. Hey, there's a cool opportunity here and there. Now, we almost did get together for one particular event that was going to happen for the CMA Awards. Um, it never happened. I think that the people at the CMA Awards just maybe didn't want it or didn't want it to happen, or I forget the whole scenario, but we have tried, and I will definitely never say never. I'm just not going to. But the one thing that I can continue to do is um, make music, and I can continue to even try to recreate some of that cool magic that happened back then. Because I was on the front line, I mean, being a writer of most of that stuff. I did a lot of the pre-production. I was, it was really like me and Porter, where we would sit down and with our little ADAT machines back then, and we would hammer it out. We would hammer out the arrangements, the vocal stacks, and all of that kind of stuff. And so I know how it goes down. So that's what I try to do with this greatest hits record, is to really try to stick to that original sound, because I think that it's special. Like you're saying, it's got a very timeless kind of thing to it. But I re-recorded "Kick a Little," "God Bless Texas," "My Love," "What Might Have Been," um, "Amy's Back in Austin," "Another You, Another Me," "I Fell," "Hillbillies Love It in the Hay." And then I recorded, re-recorded the three, "Rock and Roll Heart," "I'd Really Love to See You Tonight," and "Summer Breeze." So all of that's going to be on one compilation, and I'm thrilled about it, man.
Man, I
We'll
can't
see.
wait. Well, you're gonna you're gonna have to come back so we can talk about that greatest hits album, and that
Yes.
way you can break down all the stories behind all of those hit
Yeah, I
songs.
would
But
love to.
but I think if ever if the original lineup of Little Texas ever got back together, I think the coming out would be the first Dallas Cowboy game, sing the national anthem, and then be
Yeah,
the halftime show. And I think this
man, that's a
country
great
would be.
idea, by the way.
I know I got a ton
Maybe
of
you
them.
need to pull some strings. That's
Yeah,
that's
we
really
need to
nice.
float that idea to every single member, and then call up Jerry Jones and said, hey, we got a halftime show for Texas Stadium.
I love it, man. That would be super. That'd be super, super cool. I'm down. Just count me in.
Well, we'll see what we can do to make that happen. But man, again, Brady, come back when you have that brand new greatest hits album coming out in May. I, for one, cannot wait to see it and hear it. I should say, hear it. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to head over to bradyseals.com for all of Brady's great music and to keep up with his tour schedule, because he does perform solo. He'll perform acoustically solo, as well as with Lua Crofts for Seals and Crofts 2 on selected dates. And anything else coming up for the year for you, Brady?
Man, it's just, my head right now is in finishing these mixes for this greatest hits thing and then getting out on the road to support it. And you're right. Just go to my website. Speaking of the book as well, God Bless Texas and Me, you can get it on Amazon or even Audible. I'm on there talking. But you can also get it on my website as well, and I can sign it and send it to you.
Hey, and ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this. Brady's book, God Bless Texas and Me, is one amazing read. So if you love the stories behind the songs, the stories behind the band, and all that encompasses Brady Seals' legacy, you've got to get that book. And Brady, I'm going to encourage you to come out with the sequel, because I want to hear more backstage stories with all of the greats that you have met.
I will, man. I'm. You know what? Several people have asked about it, even like in the last month. So something's, the tide's turning. So maybe I need to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's the multiple voices of confirmation to tell you to put that together.
That's right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, head over to bradyseals.com for all of his music, the brand new upcoming Greatest Hits album coming out here in the next few months, as well as all of his tour dates. And what do we always say here? Buy the music. Support your favorite artist. Buy the album, buy the record. And in Brady's case, buy the book too, as well as the concert tickets, as well as the merch. And for all of you watching and listening, I want to thank you for tuning in. And as for me, hey, I'll see you next time.